Hey, what's up, man? Awesome Ward Wrestling here. And we got one of my favorite guys back, Morris Fitness from Atlanta, Georgia. Man, this guy, if you don't know him, pure excitement. And he's got one of the best clubs in the Southeast up there in Georgia. What's up, Cuck? What's up?
Yo, what's going on, my man? What up, world? Yo, I can't tell you enough how excited I am to be on your show, man. If you think about where you're at now and when we did the first one, COVID, you know what I mean?
Oh, man, it was crazy.
Think about it. The world was crazy back then, and COVID was making social media, it kept wrestling alive, right? You were one of the guys that literally kept wrestling going, right? You got to remember, we thought we would never see each other wrestle again or whatever. And all of a sudden, you link the world of wrestling to the coaches, right? You gave us a voice. You let us, you got to hear what was going on, how we felt, the different problems. Just like, the country was in an uproar, and like you kept us together, man. So like,
Yeah,
you got
it was super cool, man. It was super cool. I didn't, I had no idea what it meant, what I was doing when I was doing it, because it was something that I did not know anybody in wrestling. I knew some kids that my son had worked out with at a local club. And the funny thing is, we went to a Rumble, and I had met Nathan Tomasello at the Rumble, right? I didn't know who he was, but my kid's eyes were this big when he walked in and was like, "That's
right.
Nato, that's Nato." So when I first started the show, I just wanted to reach out to people and have them tell me, what two things. Wrestling's been changing my family's life at the time, and now it definitely has. And what wrestling meant to them, but because of COVID, how it was affecting their world and how we were going to get through this. And,
Dude, it was
and,
crazy.
and
It
that's
was
kind of where I got to. And I would only meet people like yourself through kind of referral. So I was in sales my whole life, right? I ran car dealerships,
right.
and and all I knew was if you meet somebody, you ask them if they know somebody, right? Because in sales, that's the way it goes. I'm sure in the same wrestling world, a
It
wrestling
is.
kid comes in and signs up for the club, and you're like, "Hey, you got buddies I can reach out to? Maybe we can get them in the room, right?"
Right,
So I would
right.
ask, and that's how I started to meet. If somebody said, "Man, there's this wild guy, Chuck Morris, up in Atlanta, you got to get him on," and then I got Chuck Morris on it, so it kind of worked like that. But yeah,
But
it
that
was
was
unbelievable.
you got to think about like what was going on in the world, and like it was you. There were other coaches using social media, like I think Lewis Baker was one of those coaches who kind of put together like that coaches think tank, and we were putting out different workouts. Like you were part of that whole string, if you think about it, that kept us together, right? I mean, like I said, it was crazy, but it was something to look forward to, right? You had different guys on there doing different things. We all had the same focus was wrestling. Like, how are we gonna make it through? What ideas are you coming up with? How can we stay connected? And if you think about it, 4 years ago, 4 years ago, right? And here we are, right? We were in the thick of it, and now life has changed. You know, it's like like now this segment is life after COVID. How did we do?
Yeah.
What did we do? Like
And man, and your show started, and I watch you, and I've been up to Moore's Fitness. I got to be on your show, and it's cool to hear your take on wrestling too. On the
it's
positives, the
it's
negatives. I've been
yeah,
trying to
man.
catch up. I know you had one show the other day where you were kind of angry at parents.
Well, it was it's funny. People ask, it was like, you know, parents want to control everything. And I get it, right? You want to control the outcome of your kids, but at some point in this world, your kid has to learn to stand. And the whole point behind that little clip was we got to allow our children to fail, to win, to go through it, to be able to learn from the situation. Because if you keep trying to feed them the answers, you're creating a soft kid, right? There's no cheat code. Either you got to let them go through it, or not let them do it, right? And that's the problem, right? And everybody thinks they have a cheat code to make it better, and it really isn't. It's you find a program, you stick with a program, and you let the coach do what he does. If you're not happy with the coach, then you have the right to leave. But doing the whole thing, you kind of gotta let your kid figure it out. Like,
yeah, I mean, what goes through your mind when you see those clips where the parent comes running out tackling the kid, where the parent comes out pushing the kid, or the parent? That's some crazy shit, man.
There's two sides to those kind of clips, right? I mean, there's some parents who lose it and think, "Oh my God, my kid's in danger." But then there's been times as a coach that you want to run out there because the referee is not protecting the kid, right? I've seen situations where a kid is about to get hurt, or I've been in situations where the other kid is knocked out and the referee doesn't see it, and I'm just like, I'll run out there and be like, "Ref, we got to stop this. This child's in danger right now." And if you don't protect the children, then you're just at fault. You know what I mean? So I get that part. Or if I see a kid is bleeding and it's not even my kid, I'm like, "Ref, we got blood over here. We got to protect this kid." Or if a kid has a quick seizure and the ref doesn't see it, even if my kid is winning or losing, I still step up to the plate to make sure the kid is protected.
Yeah, they're still kids. They're still kids. They're
Right.
still kids, right? And they're not wrestling for an Olympic title. They're in a local gym in a high school on a weekend. Yeah, and definitely need to protect them. But yeah, that's some crazy stuff. But you were going to say something before. You were talking about the craziness that happens. But yeah, it's insane when you see some of that stuff. Some of the kids getting punched in the face and
I don't know, man. Society has changed. We got these like I have to bring it back and sometimes realize and let a parent know that their kid is not a pit bull. They're not a fighting animal. This is a sport, right? This is the oldest sport in the world, right? And people get it twisted when they with their child. Everyone fantasizes about their child being the next Olympic champion, right? But here's what's crazy, right? Do you know how hard it actually is to become an Olympian, right? Think about it like this. Jordan Burroughs has been the reigning guy at his weight class for how many years?
Yeah, 7 probably. Or
No. Think about it.
7 times. Yeah, so 20 years almost.
Right. So that means there was a kid that was 13 that was aspiring to be an Olympian. His time came and went. You know what I mean? Like
at that weight.
like
yeah, if you were wrestling that weight, you were, it's the Michael Jordan effect, right? How many teams could have won a title if Jordan didn't exist?
I mean, we it's hard. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's so hard, right? And
I think that's the same thing. When I came up playing like basketball and baseball and things like that, right? And in the sport of basketball, 12 guys make an NBA team. 12.
Right.
There's 12. So it's funny when I hear someone talk about like an NBA player, but man, that guy sucks. He shouldn't be on the team. Well, that guy who's the last man on the bench was all world, all college, McDonald's All-American, 3-time NCAA champ, whatever, right? And I remember playing basketball growing up, beyond popular belief. I know I'm a short, fat guy now, but and I'd see guys that I thought were like the greatest athletes I've ever seen at the sport. And they went on to a little college and played a little basketball, but they couldn't make it. And to see something that in this sport that really opened my eyes to see how difficult it is to be the best is I got to go to the Olympic trials this year and cover it with my camera. I got
Right.
to take photos. And I tell people there, first of all, it was the most basic wrestling I've ever seen at the highest level. They
At the
don't try
highest
to
level,
do
there's no gimmicks, right?
nope. It's down blocking, it's shots, it's it's all simple stuff. And it
But
was
now I bet you
crazy.
what you did see though is there's a wave of kids that's coming up that are gonna
Unbelievable.
they're like, look, these high school kids, they are the future, but it's still hard for them to make that team.
But what's crazy is I told people like so the Olympic trials start and they'll announce two people, like this is Joe Blow versus, James Blow, right? And Joe Blow is a two-time NCAA champ, a three-time Fargo champ, a two-time Fargo All-American. That dude went 1-2. This guy's a four-time this, a five-time this, a six-time this. That guy went 0-2.
Dude, think about a
And
person like Mark Hall.
and
Mark
they are
Hall.
the best in the world, and they couldn't.
Think about a person like Mark Hall. He retired at the Olympic trials. Dude, where was he gonna go? You got Jordan Dake. You go up. You got Aaron Brooks. Like, where are you gonna go? I'm not saying he's not capable, and he is, and he's amazing. But oh my God, like the
It
talent
was
is just
unbelievable to watch. The Helen Maroulis. I mean, if you're at her weight coming up, where are you going?
the talent is just there, you know. But like again, back to the parents, right? Like we all believe that our kid is the next superstar, and and at some point, he or she may be right. But like in youth wrestling, the last time I saw a 8-year-old get recruited was never. You know
like
what I mean?
little league baseball, right? You see the
Right.
dad out. It's t-ball, dude. It's t-ball.
But I mean, it's life is crazy though. But it is what it is, right? Like
It's
kids, parents, you got all kind of things that you deal with. One of the hardest things that sometimes happens in a club is you get cliques of parents, right? Who, you know, once the clique is formed, your club can be put in a situation where if one parent leaves, they all leave, right? And it is what it is. Like I said, I never take this any. I've learned to not take it personal a long time ago, right? Especially in the club, because like I said, one of the things I say is kids are only with me for a season, right? Being it if they're with me for a month, it's a season. If they're with me for a year, it's a season. Whatever length of time I have with them, it's just a season. And and the one thing that I know is, they'll return, right? Because I know what I have to offer. Like, you know, it's funny parents leave because if you built kids up and they're becoming good and then they go try out another club, well, they're going in as a complete project, and the new I can instantly say, hey, I can show you this, that, and the other. And then all of a sudden the parent believes, oh my God, my kid has gotten better. I'm like, no, your kid has mastered the basics and now he's ready for the next level. But it's funny because it becomes one of those new and shiny things, right?
yeah, they see a new move, a new something.
And they're like, "Oh
Uh,
my God, this,
yeah,
they're better." I'm like, "All right, dude, I've been around long enough where I know I'm out of my club. I've had more kids win a high school state championship. I got kids in college. Sometimes, parents don't see your vision or whatever, or you have a rough year where things just
yeah.
whatever
But
for
also,
whatever
what's the
reason.
ultimate goal for a coach, right? Like I
Oh, dude,
did the
but
USA wrestling.
I,
Like
t- I tell
I
you,
did. I did the copper thing the other day, and they had a video on there of John Wooden, and
Mm-hmm.
he was like, "Man, obviously having these athletes is cool." He had a, obviously he's dead, but they had unless he's 150, right? But
Right.
he said something like what made him really proud was the 30 doctors he had, the 30 lawyers he had, the
Let me tell you
42
something.
businessmen, the
Let
16
me let me
entrepreneurs.
tell you, that's where I'm at right now. That's where I'm at. Like I have young guys becoming orthopedic surgeons. I have young guys becoming lawyers. I have some guys getting their doctorate in physical therapy. I have some guys just becoming accountants. You know what I mean? That's the end result, is what they
Yeah,
do in life. Because at the end of the day, this sport is going to leave, and they have to. You want to know that they can make it, right? And
absolutely.
the one thing I can tell you is right now we're growing up in a soft world, right? Where the internet makes you become an internet bully and you can say whatever you want to say to people, right? There's no more say it to my face because like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan to get punched
Oh,
in the mouth,
no,
right?
I mean, I remember growing up, and I mean, I'm sure we're around the same age, and you'd wait. If you said something about somebody, they were waiting for you outside of the school,
three
and
o'clock, 3 o'clock,
and you're ready to
3
fight.
o'clock, 3 o'clock, it
Yeah,
was going down. And
yeah.
I tell people,
There was
let me,
no.
let me tell
Go
you
for it.
something. It's funny you say that. I tell parents all the time, right? I said society is determined on a playground, on a schoolyard, right? Can your kid handle himself? Like your kid may not be the best wrestler in a room, but I'm like in the recess and on the playground, let somebody mess with him. I says we won't start it, but we'll finish it, right? Because we're not gonna have Lord of the Flies, right? I tell my parents, your kid is guaranteed not to be picky. He will or she will be able to defend herself and take a person down. Forget about it. It's
Well,
that's what society.
the confidence that it builds too is because
Dude, no
I
one's gonna. I've
I
yet.
want my kids to be able to go to work at a business or their own business or do business and not feel afraid of having to confront somebody or having to not be afraid to have to deal with a tough situation or not be worried, well, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to get fired. No, this is what I believe, and I'm not afraid to stand up and say it, right? Not allow somebody in the working world to work bully you as far as you're not good enough. You can't believe, but that belief has already been built in their core where they're not going to break them. And I think that's what I noticed this sport is doing for my family. And I think I think that's what it does for a lot of families.
It is. I always go back to telling people that if I didn't wrestle, I wouldn't be here. Like I'm from the Bronx, man. Like the early '80s, the late '80s, early '90s. I'll say it again. New York City, we had our own pandemic and epidemic, right? We had the AIDS pandemic, the crack epidemic, right? It was crazy. And you had to navigate and survive that world, right? And the world was not nice at that time. And now, you have this different mindset with these kids. Like they think that things come easy, right? These easy times create, I heard the quote, what easy times create soft minds and soft, people, hard times can create good, hardworking people, you know what I mean? And we're in that transition what where where these kids, are given way too much. One of the things I pride myself on in the now tournaments is, if we do an in-house tournament, there's no second place. It's only first place, right? Because that's who worked for it, and then we work on building these kids up to get there. You can't. Here's one of the things you can never do for your kid. You can't buy them a state championship, right? You can't buy him a victory. You can't, right? At the end of the day, the kid has to want it, right? And like parents, you can't, parents want it so bad, and down here in Georgia, we are a first generational state when it comes to wrestling. And you're like, well, what does that mean? Is a nine times out of 10, I'm the first person that has taught a kid how to wrestle, right? You go up north, your father wrestled, your grandfather wrestled, your uncles wrestled, your neighbors wrestle, everybody wrestles, right? And what happens is these kids then they go back home and they make the place better. We're waiting for the Jackson Smiths, the Caleb Hensons, and the
Yeah, we were just talking about that the other day.
The Dave Arnold's.
I was
We're waiting for our D1 All Americans like Chip Ness and all
come
these
back
kids
and grow.
come home, right? Like
Yep.
I'm waiting for the next generation. But one of the things that I've always done as a coach is I managed to surround myself with young individuals that love the sport. Like I got two new coaches, right? I have my coach JoJo. He's from Pennsylvania, and he wrestled in the Nolman Club, and he brings a different energy down. You know what I mean? Like he loves the sport, and we have a lot in common, right? What we have in common is life for him wasn't always easy, right? So we can automatically relate. You know what I mean? I have one of my guys who went to college. College isn't for everything, and he's home and he's trying to build a life, and he's doing amazing. Trey's doing good things. He's learning the business because at some point, right? Like I have another campus. I want to be able to either find more campuses or let these guys run the show and just be the face. You know what I mean? And
we were talking about that the other day. I was at an event, and there was folks there from Illinois, and they would ask me my thoughts on Florida wrestling, and I said, I think our best, and just like in Georgia, I think our best competes with the best anywhere in the country. Our top people compete. But we're not a generational state yet either, and I think that's where we lose the depth,
but then
right?
you got dudes coming back home, like you got the Miami Hawks run by Pat Lugo, like that. But
they're starting to come back.
But then you got Duck, who's down there. Duck is like one of the best youth coaches on the planet. Like, and you want to see the Duck effect, then look at Omi Akasa with Life. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's one of his creations, and Life is one of the best, programs there.
Him and Coach Balmaceda have really built
and then
a kingdom at South Dade,
Yeah, I mean, so you look at that influence, but like.
But you see, I mean, with everything, I mean, you've got you've got the Lake Highland Preps, and you've got the South Dades, and the summer, just.
Look,
well trained now up in the Panhandle with
you got
Ryan Blackwell,
Georgia, right? So in Georgia, you got the backyard brawler, my man Danny Gatt, who came out of my club. You got Sammy Roundtree, right? He came out of my club. You know what I mean? Like, and it's funny. People are like, well, they were with you or whatever. I still talk to these guys all the time and encourage them and tell them that they're doing a great job, because ultimately you want to see them succeed because they bring something else to the table, right?
For sure.
And so it's something to see and watch them grow.
Good stuff. Something I wanted to ask you was, so Disney, to transition a little bit, Disney Duels, which is the Scholastic AAU duels, made a change this year, and they went down to Fort Lauderdale from Orlando, and I know you always got the Charlie's Angels in there. And battling. What did you think this year? I mean, looking at the numbers, I know it was down a little bit. I saw.
Well, I'll tell you this, right? One, that tournament kind of helped put me on the map. Like they voted me AAU Coach of the Year and all that other stuff, right? Two, there was a lot of, barking about the new venue and moving, but there was it also coincided with the duels, a lot of the duels, that the national duels, and so you saw a lot of teams not go, but then you also saw people just barking about the price and stuff like that. Um, I gotta say, man, the competition was there, and I know it was down by the numbers. And my man Wade Chalice and those guys are on a mission to really grow that tournament back to where it was at. I had a good time. I had one team in the All Stars. It's the first time I brought a boys team. We had a young man pin everybody he wrestled with, and then the Charlie's Angels out of Florida, they ended up taking third, and then they also under Robert Hickman, he's a heck of a coach. And then you had the Progressive Girls take eighth in their division, which was very exciting. But as far as the numbers go, I think people don't like change, right? But
Right.
when you get there, you can see that the change wasn't that bad. People talk about the hotels of being expensive. Well, if you go 5 miles out, you get a good rate. Or if you did a Airbnb, you were able to house X amount of kids, and it worked out. But I think people wanted the Disney effect because they look at it as a destination vacation, to be able to go to Disney, right? And so you got to ask yourself, are we going to war? Are we going to go ride rides, right? You're
Yeah, well, I think that
because I
obviously
got to tell you,
AAU they do a good job, right? And I'm sure, and I heard through coaches some positives and some negatives, right? The same things that you're bringing up, right? Like it's uh, location, the
I
ability
mean, for
to make
me,
it a destination.
it was
But I
easier
think
to get to the beach. Like it was easy.
right, right. And I think you're right. I think a lot of families every year would say, I think we talked about this on the phone. They would say, "Hey, let's." I mean, let's be honest. The AAU Scholastic Duels is fun. It's huge. It's a great time. It's a chance to wrestle. It's not Fargo. It's not NHSCA duels. It's not
But
something that brings
I got to tell
that.
you, right, so you look at a school, you look at the Georgia schools like Camden and
So, but I
Social
think that's
Circle.
why people look at it as a vacation. They were like, "Wow, we can get a week of wrestling, 3, 4 days of wrestling, and our kids can get 15 matches, which is awesome,
And then,
and we can go meet Mickey Mouse." I think
I
that's a
mean, but then
bit.
you look at the schools that are building programs, right? Like a Camden or a Social Circle, right? They both won the big school and a small school, right? For them, or you look at that school like Norman, who came down, right? For them, you get to bring. It's the only tournament that you can kind of bring your whole team to compete and make it cost effective, right? You can't take all your kids to Fargo,
Right.
right? Let's face it. So there's still a need for duels like this. And let me tell you
Yeah.
something.
No, and I'm not saying, I mean,
Still
it's
has, still
important.
has
It's important. It's amazing. And to bring 25 kids and be able to mix and match them and is awesome. What I'm saying is people, as far as the mental state of this is a business trip, it always was different with that duel because yeah, we're still going to go compete and we want to win because we're competitive, but it was also about the fun and also about the experience and also about that. And it wasn't AAU's fault, first of all, that Disney is no longer. If Disney never decided to transition, from what I understand, you probably know more about it than I do, but from what I understand is Disney decided to transition in a different direction, and having a wrestling tournament was not part of that direction, and it kind of that's how AAU got cut off of that. So it wasn't AAU initially that said we don't want to be at Disney anymore. I think that they're smart enough to know being on the campus at Disney is unbelievable. So from what I understand, Disney is the one that went a different direction, and now
Yeah, I really don't know who or what made that decision, but I can say this: people don't like change, but I think it'll come back because sorry about
No worries.
sorry about
That's okay. Yeah, well, like you said, and every coach I have spoken to, whether there's something they liked or didn't like, the one thing that was even across the board was the wrestling was good. The wrestling was fun. The wrestling was exciting, and the wrestling is what was awesome. They say the wrestling was great.
right. Sorry about that.
No worries. So the one thing I've heard from everybody, including yourself, was when it's all said and done, the kids want to wrestle, and they got to wrestle, and the wrestling was amazing. And I never hear the kids ever come out of a tournament, whether it's Spartan or AAU duels or USA
You know,
wrestling
it's
or any of the things at Osceola or anywhere. You never hear a kid come out of a tournament and say, "Man, that sucked. Man, that was terrible. Man." It's always a parent or a coach because they look at it as a different. They
what's
look at
cool?
it a different way.
It was still cool to see a Nebraska team there. It was still cool to see an Iowa team there. It was still cool to see, teams from Pennsylvania there, right? It was still cool to be like, hey, we're a Georgia team, a club in the All-Star program, right? It was still cool to see some Angels there. I mean, people gotta, for the right price, it's worth it. I mean, we're still cheaper than baseball, lacrosse, and football, you know. And so, you just got to figure out what's best for you. Like, when we go back, yeah, I like those guys. They, AAU is also trying to build. They're trying to take some kids over to Bahrain, right? Give them an opportunity to see the world. So there's as far as I'm concerned, AAU is the grandfather of wrestling when it comes to the sport. It was the first, and that's where I started out at. And so, it is what it is.
That's
Like
awesome.
change,
Hey, what did it mean to you guys in Georgia to see Henson win it all?
dude, that was like the best thing on the planet. It was like we knew he was capable, but we knew like it was amazing. Like watching him go out there, I think the whole state must have shut down and cried and cheered, right? Because still going in, he still wasn't the favorite. You
No.
know what I mean? He still wasn't, and he did what he does. I watched. Let me tell you,
The best was his press conference when they asked him if you win, being the first Georgia kid or something. He said,
when
"When I win."
you know, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I like to say I helped change his life. We when he was 10 years old, he lost in a state championship to one of my guys, right? Like he lost to Ben Williams. First, beat him up. And me and Caleb, we talk about that, right? And he says that was it. He told his parents that he wanted to be good. The next year, bro, he smashed Ben Williams, right? Which is my guy. Yo, Caleb never lost again in the state of Georgia. Yo, I don't remember him losing ever again after that.
Once he got his mind right, he was right. Listen,
Dude,
everybody was. I was blessed and lucky enough to watch him for a few years in a row compete at the Christmas Knockout,
but he
and I
puts it
got to
all on the
see him
line
down there.
every time, right? And he don't care about the losses, right? He just is like, I'm coming at you. Like,
Listen, that wave of Southeast kids that came out 2 years ago is unbelievable.
so
I mean,
you got him.
I was just talking to Brendan Abden yesterday, and I mean that whole wave. They grew up together, him and Henson, and all those kids,
Dude,
and
they're not. We look. You got Jackson Smith, who I know who's going to do something right. We got a returning All American. My guy did an All American last year. Gavin Kane, but he was an All American the year before. He's coming back. Rob Cole has a whole bunch of Georgia boys on that team. I mean, then you got, some of my favorite guys like Gabe, people like, well, he ain't from Georgia. He's from Georgia, right? Gabe Arnold's from Georgia. I like to say I helped change his life. I told his dad when we went on a dual tournament, I said, yo, your son's going to lose every match. And Phil was like, no, he's not. I'm like, yo, he's going to get smashed. And sure enough, he got smashed. And then all of a sudden, Gabe, the switch flipped. You got my guy, Tyler Lillard, who started with me when he was a little guy. Dude made it to the NCAAs, wrestling in the Big Ten. I mean, and then I got a bunch of boys who'll be wrestling at Davidson next year. It's fun watching these boys follow their dreams, right?
And I think Carr is going to do and he's been doing a really, really good job up there. I think he's really going to build that program.
He's doing amazing there. I mean, it's just, the college. So now what I can tell you now, I'm probably going to be forced to buy a ticket to go to the NCAAs because I want to see Caleb Hinson win it again. I want to see Jackson Smith win it. I want to see Tyler Lillard win it. I want to see Gabe Arnold win it. Right, and the list goes on of all the Georgia.
But yeah, like we watching the Crooks this year, and Kai Owen and Basil and all the Florida guys that were.
I want to see my boys out in UNI. RJ Weston, and I want to see him win it. And
he's a good kid.
Or my boys like Todd Carter out of Gardner Webb. His little cousin is gonna go there, Reed Walker. But here's the deal, though, right? We got kids going. NAIA Division 1, 2, and 3. People say, well, what's the difference? I says the difference of where these kids end up is the relationship that they have with the coach, right? It doesn't matter where they go, it's wrestling, right? You don't have to go broke. You can go to NAIA, get some money, right? The nil deals are changing everything now, right? So there's ways, if you want to wrestle, you can wrestle. And
well, you guys... Do you guys have a really good NAIA team in Georgia? I'm not sure you guys have one.
But we have two. You got and you got Reinhardt, right? Jeff Bedard is
Are those two programs any good?
Oh my God. Let me tell you something. I would put those two programs up against some of the smaller D1 schools. I promise you.
Well, I hear Omi shout it all the time. He wants it.
Dude,
Omi wants it.
They don't want the smoke. You know what I mean? And what Jeff is doing over there, I love Jeff because, he focuses in on that local talent, and he keeps some of our boys home who would go other places, and he gets them to the podium. But yet, not only does he get them to the podium, I know these boys are graduating with double degrees, getting a master's, getting a undergrad, and
well,
really.
And how about the JUCO opening up now? You got the JUCOs opening up now in Georgia, and
it's gonna. I mean, there's
fantastic.
Gonna be an opportunity. Like Georgia, we always say, hey, we want a D1 program, but I'm gonna be honest. Life University is a D1 program. You got D1 kids walking through there all day long. You got to make that lineup. Reinhardt College, I would consider them a D1 program. We put these labels on schools, but there's some D3 schools that will smash a D1, like a Wartburg or an Augsburg. Forget it, bro.
Yeah, my son is at North Central, and they got a squad there too, and you see some of these guys.
At the end of the day, college wrestling is the hardest thing on the planet. NAIA Division 1, 2, 3, JUCO, club wrestling, whatever you're gonna do, to still lace them up after high school is the hardest thing. How many guys never ever see that fourth year or that final fourth year?
Yeah, when I talk to college coaches, they tell me one of the biggest successful one of the biggest things they call success is if they can take a kid and keep them in the program all 4 years, whether they, just keep them on the mat and in the program and focus all 4 years. So many kids fall out.
Dude, it's hard. And your body injury, the mental aspect,
Ultimately, you have to graduate. That's the goal, right? So
but
if it's affecting your ability to do your work too academically,
well,
you got
then
to figure it out, right?
and then there's the aftermath, right? It's what do I do when this sport is done, right? There needs to be a program for high school and for college when these kids transition to after sport because you know that's when the erratic behavior happens, right? Because they don't know what to do with this energy, and it's crazy. But it's but back to Georgia wrestling, we're getting better. We're
Yep.
getting better. We're watching these kids compete. Our high schools are. I say our best high schools can go with anybody on the planet.
You know, before we wrap up, I think the most important thing is how's the garden coming?
Oh, it's a little slow this year, man. I didn't. The heat. It was the weather. It was just a bad year for gardening, man. You had that long winter, and then now we got this extreme heat now, and it's just like we'll just wait till
Yeah.
it's off.
So if you ever get up to Morris Fitness, before he talks about wrestling, before he shows anything else, he's got to show you the garden.
Oh my
You go out behind this place, and it's probably 30, 40 yards of gardening. And he's got every vegetable, fruit. I mean, it's all in there. It's super awesome. That was fun when you were like, man, I got to show you something. I got to show you something. And we went down there, and that garden is pretty cool.
I appreciate that. I'm doing like
that's probably gets your mind away from things, right? You say,
you get to go think.
I'm having a tough day. Let me go out there and pick some grapes or something.
True that. But like I said, like you said before we wrap up, like I said, man, I don't know if anybody ever said thank you, but like thank you because COVID is where great things happen. Even though the world was crazy, some good things came out of it, right? And like I said in the beginning, you kind of were one of the few people who held us together, man. Like there was a voice, there was something to look forward to. It was always positive. It was different wrestling, and it just snowballed, and here we are, like 4 years later, and we're still here. Right?
It's incredible, and I started doing the podcast again in the last month or two. Just a lot of my stuff has been media stuff as far as, going out and taking photos for the kids and the athletes.
Right.
And I do media days now. So any schools in Georgia want me to come up for media day, I'm in. But, I kind of made some transition. I'm like, I want to start this up again. But I look back and, I mean, 500, I think this show is like 525 or something like crazy like that. So I never imagined. I just thought, well, we're going to be stuck in the house for a couple of weeks. I'm going to do this because I want to kind of give back. I didn't expect to be stuck in the house for 6 months. I didn't expect to come out of COVID and people to actually know who the hell I was.
Dude,
like even now, sometimes I'm humbled by people reaching out or seeing me out in the public and saying something to me. And people, some people tell me, well, you mean something to the athletes, you mean something to the coaches. But to me, I'm just trying to do something
to the wrestling community, and not just the wrestling community, but the Southeast wrestling community. You know what I mean? Like you're one of our guys down here who promotes the local college, who promotes the local athlete, who promotes the local club, and
it's been cool because now seeing these kids,
they're in college.
Yeah, it's so cool to watch them. Like talking to Brendan Abden yesterday with Jason, or Tuesday with Jason. It's so cool. I remember, when he was a freshman, and I remember being up in We were somewhere, and I remember watching him wrestle. Bartelt, I remember the first match I ever took a picture of him is he he wrestled another kid, Ty. Um, Ty was a guy from Goog's camp who went off to Little Rock, and now he has a child, and he's
you're talking about Larkin
yeah, and they wrestled each other at
dude.
the Hilton Head Grappler, and
What I understand,
he
my
was
man,
so young.
he's about the he had a little baby, but
Yeah,
he's been posting. I think he's about to come out of retirement and hit the mat again up in Arkansas. And speaking of Arkansas, forget
that'd be
about
great. He's a
dude.
good kid.
Those dudes are doing incredible there. But anyway,
Yeah, and now to see these guys, I mean, Bartelt ended up being pretty good, right?
yeah, man. I mean, it's
Yeah, he's number one in the country, number two in the country.
you know,
But seeing all these guys coming out, there's guys at Life U now that I watch, and there's guys at Little Rock and Davidson and the Army, and
look,
uh,
you got my
I
man
could go
Gunnar
through it.
Flipowitz up in the Army. You know what I mean? There's a bunch of listen.
Basil, look at Basil.
There's a bunch of Georgia boys up in, and you got Tennessee boys, Georgia boys. I mean,
How
they
about the Air Force? You've got
Air Force.
you got Betters. Isn't Betters going to the Air Force?
Yeah. What was
He's
it? Was Keys at Air? Where was Keys at? Was he at Air Force? No, he was at the Naval Academy.
Naval Academy, yeah, and we've got guys there too. So it's been really cool, and it's kind of cool to sit and watch the college kids, and you're like, hey, I took pictures of that guy. I talked to that guy. Like it's kind of cool.
Hey, or about hey, that kid was in my room. Or hey, they were like, I got that kid on speed dial. Watch this. Hey,
Yeah, no, I tell Daniel, hey Daniel, you remember getting cradled by that kid? He's so mad at me from we were at he didn't talk to me for a month, man. He had to wrestle Cooper Haas one time, and I'm over top of the camera, and he's like, he didn't talk to me for a month because Cooper Haas is pretty good.
Yo, if you ever get to talk to Cooper Haas, he's another one of those kids who started traveling with me, right? He was one of those kids nobody wanted, right? Coop started traveling with me. Corey and his wife, they're great people. They put him on all my travel teams when he was little. I call him up and be like, I need Coop. And they be like, you got him. And now you look at Coop, he's a grown man, you know?
He's doing right now. He's doing clinics down in Florida, which is awesome. Like you said, to see these kids come back. We've seen the Mintos, we've seen Jewel Williams, we've seen Pat Lugo, we've seen Cooper. And I'm sure I'm missing people, but these kids are coming back to the state, like you said, in Georgia, and they're putting on clinics. And I said something to somebody the other day because we were all kids one time, right? And if I was a JV guy on a basketball team, my mentor was the guy that played my position on varsity, and that's the guy I looked up to, and that's the guy I watched.
Listen to
These
me.
kids growing up in our state, they looked up to the Crooks and Cook and these guys.
You said that's a whole nother podcast right there.
Right.
Like there was something to be said about waiting your turn to start, as opposed to, hey, I'm not gonna start, I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna go someplace else. That's a whole nother podcast.
Well, and these little kids wanted to take pictures, when a Sawyer Bartelt is at a youth tournament, these kids want to watch him wrestle, and they say, when I grow up, I want to be like him. They're not saying I want to be like Kyle Dake. They're not saying I want to be like Spencer Lee. They're saying their mentor is just right there.
They want to be they want to be like the Gabe Arnolds of the world, the young people from the community.
Yeah. Their heroes maybe they're watching Spencer Lee, and that's their favorite wrestler as far as at that level, college wrestlers. But the kids that they can relate to, because I could touch and feel and see an Anderson Heap wrestle, a Gunnar, a Cooper, any of the the South Dade kids, Lake Highland Prep kids, the Somerset kids, any of our great best kids that come up. We can see all the greatest kids wrestle. We see them in the room, so I can be that kid. Sometimes when you're in the TV screen, the belief is, well, that's Superman, right? That's Superman. I can't be Superman,
Right.
but I could be this kid, right? And I think that's good. And to see these kids come back now and mentor the younger kids that watched them wrestle, sat on the side of the mat. How many times have you been to a Georgia match and all the little kids on the side of the mat because they get to watch Henson wrestle, or they got to watch
It's
Big Mama wrestle, or they got to watch any of those kids. That year the year the Murderers Row came out of Woodward.
I know all of those kids. All
Those
of them.
kids were unbelievable. I'm sure
I know all of
little
them.
kids are
I know
running
all
the
of them.
mat.
I
Yeah,
know all of them. You know. But anyway, my
it's awesome.
client just walked in.
All right, brother. Thank you so much, man. It's always good. We can do it anytime.
It's a pleasure, man. I can't wait to run into you again. Talk to you later. All right, man.